Great. Welcome everyone to today's 2024 Global Challenge Application Clinic session. My name is Ellie Moriarty. I'm the Senior Officer of the Learning Pillar here at Solve, but really excited to talk through all of our global challenges. And I'm joined here by my colleague Eliana, who is a Senior Officer of our Innovator Program. She'll kindly also be answering questions in the chat. And we'll make plenty of time for questions at the end. So whether you want to hold off and then ask at the end or ask during in the chat, either works for us. And this is the last application clinic. So glad to see you all here and really excited to see all of your applications. Next slide, please. Great. So what is Solve? What do we do? Solve is an initiative of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We believe that in order to achieve a more sustainable and equitable future for all, we need new voices and new ideas. So we launch open calls, open challenges to find exceptional and diverse innovators and solutions for today's most pressing global challenges. So this is an application that's open to anyone, almost anywhere in the world. And if you are selected, you'll get the backing of MIT, of Solve, and of our global community to support and scale your solution. Next slide, please. Awesome. So who are we talking about when we're talking about our solvers? Solvers are often proximate leaders within their communities who have created solutions to serve their communities. So as of now, we've been doing this for about 7 years, and we have over 400 innovators that we've supported through funding, in-kind resources, and connections. Within that group, we have 43 Indigenous Communities Fellows. So our Indigenous Community Fellowship started just reaching the US, and now that's including Canada as well. And in terms of our solvers, the vast majority are still working on their solutions, around 90% still operational. Also, we have a very sort of good split between for-profit, hybrid, and nonprofit solutions. You can see the majority are for-profit, but we also have many who are nonprofit as well. I'm proud of the fact that 62% of our solvers are women-led solutions, and 62% are based in what I call the global majority, or what some folks call the global south. So you can see a fabulous picture of some of our solvers here as well. Awesome. And I see Eliana wrote in the chat that some folks are using transcription. We also held application clinics in French and in Spanish. If you or your team want to refer to those at any point, they're available on our website. So speaking of global reach and sort of applicants across the world, we get applications from over 180 countries. So you can see here, our solvers are really based all over the world. Next slide, please. So our global challenges timeline. We are in the yellow bar that you can see here. So this process really starts in 2023 for us, thinking through what topics are most pressing in the world and which need a technology-based solution, and which challenges can be sort of met by the most promising and diverse solutions. So after we launch the challenges, we're in the period right now of you all applying, as I'm sure you're well aware of. There's just under 2 weeks left in the application cycle. So applications are due April 18th at 12 p.m. So that's noon. The next phase will really be on our end for a bit. We do an initial screening process and work with a group of external reviewers and a judging panel to look through and score your application. And so they go through multiple rounds of review, really close review. And then if you are selected beyond the semifinalist stage as a finalist, you will be asked to do an interview with the judges and sort of a mini pitch. Then if you are selected for the Solver program, we are really happy to be able to convene all of our solvers at Solve Challenge Finals, which is an event in New York City, featuring your solution and having an opportunity for you to meet our wider community. Then if selected for the program, you undergo a support program that's really tailored to your solution, led here by my colleague Eliana. This includes tailored introductions, a series of workshops, executive coaching, and different opportunities to network and engage. The final piece, if selected for the Solver program, is the Solve at MIT event, which takes place every spring on MIT's campus. And this is another time to sort of showcase the work you've done and network with like-minded folks. So this is sort of a lot to take in, but really where we're at right now is this yellow and blue phase of the application and then the upcoming screening and judging. Awesome. And I'm seeing a lot of posts coming in the chat. Looks like Eliana is answering a lot of those, and we'll also make time for questions at the end. Great. Next slide. So our 2024 global challenges, I'm sure you're all sort of honed in on at least one of these. Our challenges are across economic prosperity, learning, climate, health equity, and our Indigenous Communities Fellowship. So if you've applied for Solve's challenges before, we see a lot of reoccurring applications. One thing is that this year, our challenge themes are more broad. They're less on a specific topic within each of these sections. So it's really a great opportunity if in the past you felt like, you know, the specific theme didn't meet your exact solution. This is a great time to apply. Within each of these challenges, you'll find that there are more specific dimensions that the challenge really seeks to answer. So good to also see if your solution applies to one or more of those dimensions. Next slide, please. Also want to include that within each of these challenges, or within learning, economic prosperity, climate, and health equity, we have our call for our Black and Brown Innovators program. So this is a piece within the challenge that you can elect to be considered for. And the program is really focused on solutions that are addressing racial inequities within the US. So looking at proximate innovators who are serving Black and Brown communities within the US. And if selected for this track, there are additional culturally responsive programs, introductions, and opportunities to travel. So you can see here a testimonial from one of our Black and Brown innovators in the US, Ashley. And there's more information about this specific call on each of the challenge pages. Next slide, please. Okay, so what do you get if you're selected as a solver? What are you applying for? So if you are selected as a solver, you get $10,000 in unrestricted funding from Solve. And then additionally, you are eligible for access to an additional prize pool of over $1 million. So on each of the challenge pages, you can see which prizes each challenge is sort of eligible for, and you're in the running for those prizes when you apply to the challenge. Additionally, we have a venture philanthropy vehicle through Solve called Solve Innovation Future, which you can read more about on our website. So they invest in some of our for-profit teams. So you can read more about Solve Innovation Future on our website. Additionally, Solve provides travel stipends to both of our flagship events. So Solve Challenge Finals in September in New York City, and Solve at MIT, which takes place in Boston or Cambridge, Massachusetts. Additionally, with selection, you get introductions to potential funders, to leaders in the space, and this tailored 9-month support program that I'll speak on in a bit further details. And then after the support program, we like to say, once a solver, always a solver. So you'll still have access to attend our events. You're still eligible for some prizes. For-profit teams are still eligible for investment through Solve Innovation Future, and you still have access to our workshops. Awesome. And I see a chat or a question here in the chat that asks, may I apply to the global challenges and one of our custom challenges called LEAP? And the answer is yes. So right now you might see that Solve has multiple calls for solutions open, and you are more than welcome to apply to both our custom challenges and our global challenges. Just make sure to tailor your application for each one and think through, the time involvement if selected, but definitely eligible and encourage you to apply. Next slide, please. So this 9-month support program that I'm speaking about will take place from September to May if selected. Solve's community has been around for over 7 years now, and we have a network of experts in the field, of folks from MIT and beyond who are really eager to engage with our selected teams. So what you get as a solver includes access to in-kind and pro bono resources to help you empower your innovation journey. These are some tech tools, HR tools, marketing tools, pieces like that. As I mentioned, opportunities to connect and network with each other as a cohort and through our events and the wider community. You'll also be eligible for 6 one-hour-long leadership coaching sessions if you'd like to engage in that. Additionally, we have a wonderful marketing and PR team who loves to feature and amplify what our solvers are doing across the world, which is something they're always looking to do. And then, as I mentioned, workshops and training. So we have workshops around monitoring and evaluation, around marketing, really tailored to where our solvers are in their journey. Next slide, please. Great. So working on your application, I'm sure this is where a lot of you are right now. Great, let's get into it. Okay, so in the application, keep in mind that to get started, you have to select which challenge you're applying for. So while you're more than welcome to apply to multiple challenges, we do typically encourage you to focus in on one, as if you are selected in advance, sort of into the finalist stage, you'll be asked which challenge you want to focus on to be considered to be a solver. So the application will start with asking which challenge you want to apply for, and it'll also ask you to designate a team lead. So the team lead is someone who should be really the leader of your organization and solution. This often is a title of CEO, founder, executive director, and you'll be asked to sort of share more details about high level your solution and your team lead. You'll then be asked in the third section to go over more details about your solution and your team. And finally, you'll be asked more about your business model and funding. Some really key pieces here. So for the global challenges across learning, economic prosperity, health, and climate, we are only selecting or considering applications that are prototype stage onwards. So prototype, pilot, growth, or scale solutions. So concept solutions will not be reviewed or selected in this process, with the exception of our Indigenous Communities Fellowship. So if you're applying for our fellowship, we do encourage and consider concept solutions. So want to make sure that's clear to everyone. And if you have any questions on that, happy to answer them afterwards. Also, your application will not automatically save. This is really important. Please remember to continually press save, to do so before you exit the page. It's sort of like I was taught in school. If you're working on Microsoft Word, always save, 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 and make this a habit. In that sort of along those lines, the application will expire after 2 hours of inactivity. So make sure to be mindful about that. And pay attention to character, word, and file limits. So if you're working especially in a separate document and copying and pasting your solution responses into the application, make sure to pay attention, as it'll sort of cut you off. Additionally, a lot of the questions will be publicly available because Solve believes in open innovation. Your application, once you've hit submit, will be viewable on Solve's website. And a lot of the questions are intended to be viewed publicly. So if there's anything that you don't want out in the world, make sure to not include that in a publicly available question or answer. On that note, though, there are some questions that are just for our internal purposes. Additionally, if you include videos, whether that be YouTube or Vimeo or something like that in your application, we love to see those. Just make sure the privacy settings are turned to public so we can actually watch them. Awesome. Next slide, please. And you can definitely work on your application with other members of your team. They will also just have to create a user profile within our website or within our platform and also be added to the solution. So to add someone to your solution, you can edit the application and then search for your team member once they've created a user profile. Additionally, as I touched on, we really do want your team lead to be the CEO, executive director, or founder of your solution. We find that this is sort of the most successful solver profile, but happy to answer any sort of one-off questions about that as well. But this will be the person who is mainly pitching the solution, representing you in person at events, and liaising with our team mainly. Great, next slide. Submitting your solution. So you must complete all the required sections in order to submit. So you'll see if you try to submit and it's not done, it'll show in red which sections you have to return to. So make sure you've successfully submitted once you're done. And really encourage you to do this well before the deadline if you can. I know we have under 2 weeks left, and the deadline is April 18th at noon. Just want to, ensure there's no last minute glitches or complications, as our team, as you might expect, is getting a lot of inbound communications at that time. And keep in mind your application is publicly viewable after you hit submit. So keep that in mind. However, up until the deadline, you can continue to edit your submission. Just make sure to save it once you've done so. Great. Next slide, please. Frequently asked questions. And then once we're through these, really want to open it up to you all. I know it's a lot of me talking, so thank you all for your time and attention. How to solve defined technology. We take a really broad view of what tech is, and especially across all of our different focus areas. This is really specific to each one. So we welcome apps and software and AI and what some folks might think of as high tech. And we also welcome and want to see solutions that are using in traditional and ancestral technologies, using nature as tech, and looking at traditional knowledge systems as well. I will say from a learning pillar perspective, we've also accepted solutions that use radio, that use podcasting, that are offline first. So really, if you define it as tech, we probably define it as tech as well, is what I would say. Can you apply to multiple global challenges? This is something that I've touched on before. You can. However, if you advance beyond the initial judging phase, you'll be asked to select which one you want to put forward. So encourage you to have a clear vision of sort of what your strongest solution is. And then what is the time commitment if you are selected? To be honest, this is a rough estimate, but want to make it as transparent as possible. We expect you to commit around 25 hours across the 9 months of the program. So this is inclusive of sort of the coaching sessions, of the workshops, virtual events, and additionally the travel, if you are selected to come to our flagship events. So that is, sorry, my throat. So that is the 4 days inclusive of Solve Challenge Finals and Solve at MIT in May. However, would really say this program, as much as you put into it, you're likely to get out of it. So we see folks that also dedicate more time. It's sort of depends, but want to provide this overview. Great. Next slide, please. Okay, so Solve's challenge criteria. I'm just going to take a sip of water. So how are we evaluating your applications? These 5 criteria that you can see here on the left are what we initially used to evaluate your application. And then we have additional criteria if you advance to the finalist stage. So the first thing we'll be looking at is alignment. Does your solution address one of the global challenge themes that you're applying for? And does it use tech? So this one is pretty straightforward, I would say. Secondly, potential for impact. Essentially, do we think that your solution and how it's planned to be implemented really has the potential to reach the intended population or climate goals that you're adhering to? So for this question, I would look at your theory of change and questions that touch on that. I'll add that on our application page, we have sort of a longer description of what all of these criteria entail as well. Feasibility. Essentially, does your team have a realistic and practical plan for implementing the solution? And is it feasible given that context? So, where you're located, what type of tech is involved, is it feasible? Innovative approach. Are you using either a new technology, a new application of technology, a new business model, or a new process for solving? So even if you're using a technology that has existed, are you reaching a new population with it or doing it in a different way? That's something we're always excited to see. Finally, inclusive human-centered design. This is very important to us, wanting to make sure that you are considering inclusive and equitable outcomes. Some examples of this is if you are using design thinking when creating your solution, how you can demonstrate proximity of your team to those that you serve. These are all pieces that we look at when thinking about inclusive human-centered design. And then if you advance to the finalist stage, we'll also be looking at scalability. So do you have a plan for financial viability, whether you're a nonprofit or for-profit? And can this be scaled to affect even more people beyond the intended population that you're serving? Partnership potential. You are able to articulate how your solution would benefit from the resources of Solve and the community that we are able to introduce you to, and sort of how Solve will help you advance your solution. Technical feasibility. So if your solution is using tech that our main panel of judges is less familiar with, we also will be conducting technological feasibility interviews with a panel of tech experts that essentially are assessing if the tech is using, well, A, if it's novel, and if it's doing what it claims to be doing. Yep. Next slide, please. Okay. Apologies. I misspoke when I said that I was almost done talking, but I promise now we're wrapping up on my end, and because I really want to hear from you about your specific questions. So strengthening your application tips. We really see the best performing applications are the ones that fill out the application holistically and complete answers to most or all of the optional or supplemental questions. We find these are the applications who are most likely to be selected. Additionally, many of the questions incorporate help text with examples of what we mean or links out to resources or tools to help you best complete the question. So on this topic, we have a eligibility quiz. If you're still deciding whether applying to this program is the right fit for you, we have an eligibility quiz on the website. We have a course that you can have access to called Business and Impact Planning for Social Enterprises. And additionally, encourage you to look at the Become a Solver page on our website, which includes frequently asked questions and more details about the criteria. And this is the last application clinic, so thank you for coming to this last one. But I would say we have recordings to all the others on our website if you want to see what other questions have been asked. That is a good tool, and it's on Solve's event page. In general, and speaking to selected solvers, for one reason or another, several of the ones I've spoken to said, I almost didn't apply, or I didn't think I would be selected, and here I am as a solver. So when in doubt, I would really encourage you to apply. We find hopefully that the application is also a helpful exercise for you and your team, but really want to hear from you. So definitely encourage you overall to apply. Next slide, please. Final reminders. The key one is the application is due not this week, but next week on April 18th at noon. So not midnight, but 12 p.m. at noon in the middle of the day. Keeping in mind that it is publicly viewable, with the exception of those 4 internal use only questions. we realize a lot of folks these days are using ChatGPT to help and supplement your writing. And just so you know, our stance, we welcome you to use generative AI tools to assist in how you're pulling together your application. However, certainly do not want to see a copy and paste of ChatGPT or other tools like that in your application. We find the strongest ones are really ones where we can tell it's your voice, your personal take on your solution. However, there's ways that these tools we realize can be helpful to get started in writing. So you're welcome to do that if helpful. Encourage you, like I said, to view the Become a Solver page and not wait until the last minute to submit in case you have last minute questions. We have a help desk email, which is found in the application. However, I would say this week is a better time to write to them or try to submit than the last day. And see a question, will you get the slides? We will be posting this recording, so you'll be able to view each of the slides. Next slide, please. Okay, so I mean, this photo makes me so happy. Each of our Solver cohorts every year is so exciting to select, and really encourage you, like I said, to apply. And if you need help, you can email Solve's help desk. It's help@solve.mit.edu, and we have several of our great colleagues staffing that email to help you. But now I think let's open it up to questions, right, Eliana? Yes, great. So if you have a question, please feel free to use the raise hand feature on Zoom here. And then once we call on you, you can unmute. Or if you want to write your question in the chat, that also works.
I've been doing my best to answer as many questions as possible in the chat. If by any chance I missed yours, perhaps it's because I thought it would be best answered verbally, but feel free to, put a comment below the question so we can see it in the bottom as well. I see a lot of questions about the stages. I highly recommend you to take some time and refer to the Become a Solver page, where we have detailed description of what we consider innovations in each stage. Will this be 100% applicable to you? No, they're broad and meant to be applied by yourself. So when you read them, take some time to think what will be the best for you and select that for the application process.
Thank you, Eliana. And yes, definitely was not able to keep up with all the questions in the chat, so feel free to reiterate them here. I'll also add, in terms of stages, we like to intentionally select a cohort of solvers who are across the different stages, prototype to scale. We find solvers can then help each other based on where they're at in their work. So you are not disadvantaged by selecting any of those stages. We just want to honestly understand where you are so we can best help you. But let's hear from Damola, please. What's your question? Feel free to unmute yourself if you're able to.
Yeah, so sorry about that. I was trying to unmute.
No worries.
I was a finalist for Anti-Racist Tech, and then I was in the Unbundling Policing Incubator. And so for me now, I'm trying to see how to finally get to be Solver and what were the missing pieces. So like, that's my challenge of how is it, you've got this solution. We really did a lot of tremendous things. I looked at feasibility. We already been venture backed since we did it. Partnerships, we've been able to bring a lot of universities to our ecosystem. We were always inclusive in what we did. We really had a good time talking to Hala and Aaron and, and Rachel and everybody on the team. So I guess, like, how could we strengthen to finally you know, to be the bride, not the bridesmaid this time around.
Always surprised. No, appreciate that. And so it sounds like you participated, or at least were in one of our custom challenges work, and were one of the up to 15 finalists for our anti-racist tech challenge. So broadly,
the incubator for unbundling policing.
policing. Yes. Withstand. Yeah, great. So broadly, just for everyone, candidly, I've had solver teams who have applied, 4 times and then are selected. It is, we see every year over 1,000 applications across the board for up to 30 solver spots. So it is always a really difficult job for our judges to select that final cohort. Hopefully in your past applications, they broadly were able to respond to you on which criteria you scored highest and lowest on. And from that, I would just say it sounds like you've done a lot of work on your solution since then. So being able to speak about how it has grown and evolved will be great. And thinking through those other criteria as much as possible. But we definitely see folks who are, finalists and then go on to be selected. And the great thing is this year, it is a broader call for applications. So if in the past your solution didn't exactly align with a specific topic in climate and health, hopefully this will be the year for you, is what I can say. Wish I could provide more specific advice about your solution, but it sounds like you've made great strides and have, been in the Solve network already. I think, fingers crossed that this could be your year, is what I would say.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Yeah. Let's hear from Kevin and then Nadia.
Yes, thank you. So could you go into just a little bit more of the logistics of how we assemble our team on the site? So I'm thinking now what we need to do is each team member establishes their own profile with a distinct email. Is that correct? And then in this case, I'm the team lead. We previously entered with a different associate as a team lead. He's still very active, but we want him included, of course. So basically, we each do our own profile, and then I actually submit from my profile, and then we add the others to it. Is that correct?
Correct. And looks like Eliana will be able to add more details if there's anything I missed. I'll take a stab at it. So yes, you will be the one that will say applying for, I want to apply. Again, filling out the application, we'll fill in the team lead details. And then at any stage while you're applying, you'll be able to have others in your team create user profiles. And then if you click edit within the application, you'll be able to add them to your solution page. So within each of the user profiles, you'll be able for them to fill out a bio, their title. And yes, Eliana, anything I missed there on that front?
No, I think you were good. When you go to edit application and you go to your team, there's a button that says add a team member. To add a team member, the person has to have a user. So is it really necessary for you to everyone to create a user and for you to add them to the application? I would say no, you can do them. You can do it if you want to. You can do it if you want them to be able to co-edit the application with you. But otherwise, there's a section in the application where you can enter information about your team members or who is in your team. So this is really a piece in which we'll leave it up to you on whether you want to add more teammates or not. But it's definitely doable.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And there's places in the website, if you want to link out to your website, we can, go there and also see who else is on your team if you have a page there about it. So yes, only do it if helpful to your application and having their edits, but no need to fill that out in terms of us seeing everyone on your team, I would say. Because mainly the judges will be looking at what's actually written in the application. Great. Nadia?
Thanks. I have another team lead question, and I think Annika has a similar one in the chat.
Okay.
But we're a fairly large organization. We're about 20 people, and the organization is primarily focused on EdTech in public schools, but we just stood up a whole portfolio to focus on our work in refugee settings. So I guess my question is that we have a director of refugee programs, and our application for MIT Solve is specifically around our refugee work. So in that, and sorry, I know this is a very specific question, but
No.
for us, does it make more sense for the broader CEO to be our team lead, or does it make sense for the director of refugee programs?
That is a great question and one that we see across the board. And so what I would say is generally, ideally, the team lead should be within a position of leadership within your team and be able to show that within the org chart. However, understanding that many of folks who apply to our challenge now have bigger teams, skilled programs across the world. You do want the person applying to be intimately familiar with the program and be best equipped to sort of speak about what that program needs. So I would say, and Eliana, back me up here if there's anything else, but I would say I would find the highest person at your organization who is directly involved with that program. And during the finalist interview, you'll be able to bring, if advancing to that stage, you'll be able to bring the team lead and one additional person to be able to speak about the program and answer questions from the judges. I'll say from the learning team in the past, we have seen director of program or team lead for certain business area be the team lead in the end. Just we'll want to make sure to sort of justify that and explain that in the application too. And if you advance to the judge Q&A, they might have a question about that as well. Yes, and I see here, yeah, so asked a similar question. Can you appoint a team lead? Yes, there's no restrictions when it comes to technology. Yeah, any other pieces there, Eliana? Around
I'm looking through.
title.
I see a question from Lorita that says, how about multiple organization non-profits? I'm not really sure what this question refers to. Lorita, feel free to please expand on that or go ahead and unmute yourself. If you're asking about if you're a nonprofit and want to apply, of course, you're welcome to. And I'm not sure what the multiple organization part refers to.
Hi, I'm referring to coordinating with other nonprofits that have different expertise and the like. I'm here in the Bronx and we have like 3 different nonprofits and they're each small. So combined effort, because one would have the space, well, one big organization, Cornell Tech, would have the expertise to teach people. Another one would have a smaller space to use. That kind of thing.
Yeah. So on the topic, we have had a couple of solver teams that were various organizations that collaborated on one solution. So this year within our learning solution, we have a solution called Bijak Memilih or Vote Wisely. They're based in Indonesia and they're comprised of 2 different organizations that have created that solution. And so in that case, they created multiple user profiles, they explained the partnership, and helped sort of better understand from which organization the team lead would be and how they would participate in the program. I know on the climate side, I believe last year we had a solution from 3 organizations. I'm trying to remember the title, but they worked in kelp forestry. And they are another example of a team you can look at that had a collaborative effort. So definitely understand that if you're a smaller organization, often you're closely partnering with others to implement a solution, and that is welcome to be considered. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you.
Great. And yes, so sorry if I've been missing anything in the chat. Don't I'm not at all ignoring, I just missed. And so please reiterate or raise your hand or repeat in the chat if I missed you. And the other piece I would say is in terms of the question around titles and team leads, encourage you to look at solvers from this past year of the 2023 global challenges to get a sense of, you know, who has been the team lead across the various challenges that you're interested in applying to. And hopefully you'll see some dynamics there that can answer some specific questions.
That's a great advice, Ellie. And I would add to that, if you have time and want to, please refer to our Solver Spotlight webpage, which I'm going to drop in the chat. It's always great for inspiration, for knowing how others have answered questions in the application sheet in the past. So if you have some time, you know, find how others have done it and have done it successfully in the past. That's a great source of, you know, knowledge. But we also realize that everyone has their own style. So please don't, you know, keep your voice fresh. But it's great to see how others have done it.
Great. Love that advice. Yes, Kevin.
Yes, thank you again. So this was a question from another one of our team members, and could you go into a little more of the specifics regarding the prizes and the additional prize sponsors? So here's the way I understand it. MIT selects through the SOLVE program the participants, and from those participants, everybody gets the $10,000 directly from the SOLVE program. But then in that new pool of $10,000 awardees, additional sponsors can pull to find the people or the organizations that they're supporting too, and that's over and above the 10,000. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So if your team advances to the finalist stage, which is up to 15 folks per challenge, that is then when we involve the prize sponsors to take a look at the finalists and help sort of with solves, help decide how they're going to allocate those funds across the solvers or across the selected teams. So with that process, there's no additional interviews with the prize funders. It's more them reviewing your application and your eligibility for each prize. And typically that additional funding is announced at Solve Challenge Finals. What I'll say also is if you are a solver from a past year, say you're selected this year, and then in the future, there's a prize that's eligible for you, you'll also be sort of considered in the pool for that prize. So we have some that are specific. I'd say if you're applied to the climate challenge this year, we have a lot of climate specific additional prizes. And then there's some prizes that are eligible across all 5 of the challenges as well. I'll also say, if for any reason you're successful in becoming a solver and don't receive additional prize funding, part of what we do throughout the year is try to make introductions to other funders to create more opportunities there as well. Eliana, anything to add there, or did that answer your question, Kevin, specifically about prizes? I see Eliana wrote here in the chat, how is the funding distributed? Kevin, anything else there on that?
No, I think that covers it. So
Great.
you get the $10,000 if you're considered a solver, and then the other prizes are awarded potentially to those as well over and above the 10,000, or they could even be pulled from the finalists as well.
Yeah, typically the prizes do go to selected teams and then past alumni solvers. But I think we have had some instances in which they've gotten to finalists as well, but more common that it'll be, additional funding to solvers. Great. I love this question from Samantha in the chat. This is our first time applying. What are some common mistakes that applicants make? So I can speak to sort of the first what is screened out in the beginning, mistakes that we see year over year. One thing is having very sort of short, incomplete answers, or just filling out the required questions. That is something where, while you don't have to be overly verbose or, meet the word limit of each question, if you're just doing sort of one word, one sentence answers, we often don't feel like we understand the solution well enough. One thing I should have mentioned at the beginning is that we only accept solutions in English for our global challenges. So while we host application clinics in other languages, for your actual application, it must be in English. Some other things I notice is sometimes applicants apply to a lot of challenges, which we understand is common and encouraged, but don't quite understand what Solve is, what the Solver program is, and miss out in articulating sort of why Solve, what they hope to get out of potential partnerships and this program. Other question, this will apply less this year because the challenge is more broad, but being able to speak to the challenge laid out. So for learning, looking at the different dimensions that our team is, most seeking answers to, and being able to articulate how your solution sort of relates to those challenge themes and how you're working on something that can be applied more broadly, if selected. Try to think through, are there any, Eliana, that you notice or common pitfalls?
Well, besides, the application content, which I think you cover very well, not short answers that do not really, get into the point of the question, but also, we also have seen a lot of applicants that go into a lot of like long, wordy, full of hyperlinks answers that seem not to, get to the what the question is really asking. So this year, the application portal has a word limit, which we believe that you should be able to answer that question in that space. However, if moving further along in the application, clinic will have spaces to ask you further questions in the application. But besides that, I think being about 10 days from the application deadline, I will just drop some reminders about the application in a technical side. So you can always email the help desk from Solve, and I'm going to drop the email in the chat as well. Do not wait for the last minute. We see a lot of people that send us email like the last hour or the last 2 hours of the application saying, my computer's failing, I don't know where my application is. And unfortunately, we cannot attend to all the emails that get to us in the last hour. And we cannot be flexible with the application deadline. So our suggestion to you is to submit the application, and once it is submitted, you can always edit it until the last minute. But if anything goes wrong, it's already there. We'll see it during the selection process. And I think that's the most important advice that I have right now.
Yeah, that's great. And as we're wrapping up, just thought of a couple more things on your point, Eliana, about like super long and fluffy answers. I will say, like I said at the beginning, while ChatGPT can be a useful tool to sort of structure your response, we often find it quite easy to tell when something reads as a ChatGPT answer, and it sort of takes away from the voice of the applicant, which we really want to hear. So I would say, please try to, use that tool sparingly when writing your application, as that's often noticeable. And then also, really take a look through, especially before submitting your application, the criteria that we look at, and make sure you've touched on, human-centered design, innovative approach, and the different criteria fully, as that is really sort of those first pieces that we'll be looking at when diving into your application. Great. I'm so sorry if I missed anything in the chat. Like Eliana said, you can put put it in the help desk, but are there a last question or two here that we can answer live before we wrap? I would say if you have the question, probably others do too. So definitely want to encourage you to ask it.
A quick question. How would you characterize the relative importance of the pitch video? You know, how much of our effort should be focused on telling a compelling story in the video versus the other aspects of the application?
Yes, I would say, if you have the time or if you already have a video about your solution, it's great. It's helpful to, especially when reading all the applications to have something come to life and have a visual. However, if you don't already have a video prepared, it is not a necessary piece. While helpful, I don't want teams, it's more important that your written application is sound rather than the video. I will say if you are selected as a finalist, so the stage before solver, you'll be asked to do a 3-minute pitch video for our judges. So it might be good practice. But that is my take. A lot of teams already have like a YouTube video about a specific piece of what they're doing that they can link to, which is helpful to see, but not necessary. We also have a lot of teams that just record something on Zoom like this, or just live of them speaking, but doesn't have to be highly produced or, overly done. Eliana,
Absolutely. Absolutely. The pitch video in the application is optional. So if you are short on time or you want to focus on something, I would recommend focusing on the required questions. And if you have a video, that would be nice. But if not, we require it for the application.
Yeah. Also can't stress enough how many people work on a video, but then the YouTube settings are set to private and then we can't see it. So make sure if you do a video, it is publicly viewable.
2 minutes, a pretty hard stop.
So for the one on the application, it can be, I believe, as long as you want. But then if you're selected as a finalist, it will be a 3-minute pitch with Q&A. But that is for sort of later stages of the application. Yes. Any other questions?
I see a question in the chat from Meg. If the work is conducted in a different country, but the solution team is based in the US, are we eligible to apply, or should we be aware of any restrictions? No restrictions regarding geography here. I would say while you go through the application, you will see some questions regarding where the HQ of your solution is, what countries you are operating in. So feel free to, put as many countries, and those don't have to be the same ones in the application. So I hope that makes sense. You will have a space to, put all the details of how your solution operates geography-wise in the application.
Yeah, I'll say there's a small handful of countries that as MIT we aren't legally allowed to partner with, which are found in the list. It's US embargoed countries. So take a look there, but really should not be a problem broadly. And we see many times orgs headquartered in the US and then operating in other places. Awesome. Realize we are approaching time, so don't want to keep anyone over, but thank you so much all for attending today. Really looking forward to seeing your applications and hope this was helpful for all of you. And if we didn't answer your question for any reason, please direct it towards the help desk. But thank you all and have a great rest of your day. Bye.